welcome to Bloody Good. My name is Montgomery and I've been a fan of horror my whole life.
And I'm Emily and I've just been dipping my toes into the genre lately.
And this is Old versus New, where we take a look at the original and remake of classic horror movies.
And we'll be deciding which is best using our P.H.L.E.G.M Vibes model.
This includes plot,
Horror,
location,
ensemble,
gore,
music,
and most importantly,
vibes.
For each category, we'll both be giving each film a score out of 5, and we'll total it all up at the end and decide which is the best version.
Today we're looking at two films that take place in the Antarctic that follow a group of people who discover a UFO trapped in the ice and accidentally release a creature also trapped there as it slowly hunts them down throughout the base. Today we're looking at The Thing.
Somebody in this camp ain't what he appears to be. Right now, that may be one or two of us. By spring, it could be all of us.
The greatest battles was fought and won today by the human race.
So, for the original, I really like certain aspects of it. I think the film starts off incredibly strong. I think it's really engaging from the start. However, I feel like as the film goes on, it sort of peters and patters out. Now, part of that might just be to when this film was made and a certain level of pacing it has there, but I don't know, I feel like this film could have used a bit more things happening. It's kind of got that chronic issue of a lot of older films where it's just a group of men in a room talking, but I do find certain things they do here really interesting. I really like the creature being plant-based as opposed to the remake, which is, I don't think they really touch on that much at all. That's a really interesting idea for this creature, and I think it's really unique, and I'm kind of interested to why they didn't take that on in the remake. Now, for the remake, the plot is amazing, right? It immediately starts off with a great character introduction, which I'll touch on a bit more in Ensemble, but you immediately sort of figure out who each person is in this group. They're all dressed very uniquely, they have very unique personalities, which makes it easy to figure out who's who in a very quick period of time. Now, on top of that, the sort of whodunit, almost murder mystery-esque nature of the film is great, and it's fascinating, and it's so engaging how when the film goes on further and further, it gets harder to tell who you can really trust. I love that they're all quite intelligent in this film and trying to figure out ways to go about it. I love the doctor who just loses shit, starts destroying computers. I think it is so well done in this movie, and it's just so engaging. I also really like, near the end of this film, there's this sort of trope which I don't see in a lot of horror films, which is a sort of like, we're all gonna die, let's just get this shit done. So I really like how they are all sort of accepting of their fates and know the worst thing that can happen is this creature either gets away or hibernates and waits for the next people to come back. So they know no matter what happens to them, they have to end this creature. So for the plot, I am going to give the original a 2. It is just that slow pacing that really drags it down. And the remake is going to be a 5. This is like in my top 5 horror movies of all time, and I think the plot on this is just amazing.
In terms of the original, I think there's a really good plot somewhere in there, but it just gets a bit lost because the film just kind of meanders along. Kind of the second, third act, I'm just left wanting more compared to the first act. I think it sets up the mystery and the intrigue really well to start with, but it just doesn't hold my attention that much throughout the rest of the film. And I think that's due to The Thing not actually being very prevalent throughout the whole film. Whereas with a remake, it has me from minute 1. I am just so intrigued by this film. It is just phenomenal. I think it's a wonderful film. I think it's probably one of the greatest films of all time. I think it really keeps the mystery and intrigue throughout the whole film, and it really leaves you guessing until the very last second and beyond. It's been a while since I watched this film, and I was still thinking, who is the thing by the end of this film? And I like that it's been 40 plus years and we still don't have an answer to it. And it's kind of up to your interpretation, and I love that. So for me, I'm giving the original a 2 and the remake a 5.
Now, for the original, I'm kind of split on this. I really liked the beginning where we didn't see much of the monster. I thought it was really creepy. Whenever we see the creature in silhouette, even though it's quite clearly a guy in a suit, it is actually quite intimidating and it looks really cool. There's especially a fire stunt scene which just looks amazing. All these bits where we kind of get small glimpses of him are really good. They originally filmed a lot more close-ups but cut them because the creature doesn't look that good, and bizarrely near the end of the film we do see the creature in full light and it doesn't look good. So that really does take away from it, unfortunately. Now, one thing I really did like that they did was having the radiation meter as a way of tracking the creature. I just thought that was a really good use of horror, and I think it was really engaging and really kind of kept you on your toes, especially when it started getting quicker and quicker and you just knew the creature was coming but you didn't know from where. The remake has this paranoia and this distrustfulness that is like a sort of subgenre of horror I really like, and frankly, if you know any other films like this, please let me know. It's something I've been like searching for since I first saw this film. I think this concept that you just don't know who you can trust, or even if McCready himself is the thing at any point, we don't fully know, is great. I think especially when we see that sort of computer simulation, where we're seeing just how quickly the creature would take over if it got released. Not only raises the stakes, but it is just horrifying, the idea of multiple of these things, you know, crawling about. Great. So for horror, I'm going to be giving the remake a 5, and the original is going to be a 1.
For the original, I don't think there's actually a lot of horror going on. There are certainly some creepy parts throughout the film, but I wouldn't say much is horrific. I think the thing itself is not really that scary, and I think they know that when they made this film, because there were supposed to be some close-up shots, and they neglected to include them because they realised, actually, this thing's not as scary as we thought it was going to be. So he's very much kept in the background, in the dark, through a lot of this film. And I guess, you know, if you know that that's going to work, then stick with it. For me, I think the most horrific thing is when they find the dead dog in the box. I don't love seeing dead dogs personally, but really there wasn't much else going for me in this film, apart from maybe when the scientist, doctor guy has got those little plants and he's growing them and trying to see what happens, and they kind of move by themselves. It kind of reminds me of Gremlins when the eggs are hatching, but that was the only really scary thing for me in the film personally. Again, for the remake, it is just phenomenal for horror. It is, I feel like, non-stop really from the beginning. There are so many horrific forms that the thing takes throughout this film, and it's really disgusting to watch. I especially obviously hate the dog parts. I hate when dogs, or just animals in general, have to be sacrificed in films. I hate it. So yeah, this film is very horrific to me. So I'm giving the original a 2 and the remake the full 5 again.
We've got some kind of disturbance up here and it's whacking away at everything.
Now, I really love the locations for this. I think this film perfectly lends itself to being black and white because it's just such stark, like, blanket white sheets everywhere when you see outside the snow. I think it looks great. I think especially the scene where they're finding the UFO and they're all sort of standing around it to figure out how wide it is just amazing. I think the actual base they're in themselves is a bit forgettable, and it just feels like a bunch of rooms on a soundstage connected by corridors, probably because that is what it is. I think the greenhouse was interesting. I thought it was a fun location, but overall it started off very strong, but got quite disappointing at the end. I love this location. I think it is so good. I love it at the beginning when it's this sort of cold, contrasting, unforgiving white plain of snow, and then at the end when it's on fire and burning and has this sort of glow of orange about it. I love there's these like hard locations where we have the secondary base where we're sort of catching up on the horror. I think that's amazing, like a little trope in horror that I don't think they do enough, which is arriving late to a scene and just seeing the horror play out. I think is so fun. I love the Norwegian base. I love the main base. I love McCready's little tower. I love the little sort of shed that the doctor finds himself in with the noose that no one addresses. It's quite a stark little image to put there, but hey, works. I think it is just great. I think it works so well, and it's one of my favorite locations of all time, and I think it's one of the most iconic horror locations of all time. I think the only thing I will say is I do find like the UFO crash site in the remake compared to the original is, I don't know if it's too big. I think I just like the original because of how real it felt. Sometimes less is more in that case, but the remake is still very good in its location. Now, that being said, with the original, I still love the setting for it, and I still love how practical a lot of it was, so I'm going to give it a 4. But the remake, that's got to be a 5. It's just so well done.
For the original, I think the location is quite cool. I think it all feels a bit one note. I don't know why. I don't know if it is because it's in black and white that everything kind of looks the same. I don't know. I think the crater site where they go and investigate is really cool. But once they're back in the base, it all just kind of seems the same, and it all kind of melds into one for me personally. So I don't think the location really sells the horror for me. Whereas in the remake, I think this outpost is so intimidating, and it feels so isolated to the rest of the world. And I think it really fuels the horror of the film and the mystery, and just it feels really oppressive. It's a really oppressive location. And I'm on edge watching it, because I feel like I should be watching every little nook and cranny on screen, because the thing might be there. Whereas the original didn't really have that for me. You know when the thing's coming. Whereas with the remake, I think the changes they made to the creature is really integral to why it works so well, because you don't know where the thing is at any given point really until it appears and makes itself known. So again, I'm giving the original a 2, and I'm giving the remake the full 5 again, because it's just a horrific location, and it's a really simple location in reality, but it's so oppressive and so intimidating that it just works phenomenally. So it's getting the full 5 again.
I know I'm human. And if you were all these things, then you'd just attack me right now.
Now, for the original, I might have face blindness. Emily says this to me all the time, but I think the majority of these men look the exact same. All of these characters are dressed very similar, talk very similar, look very similar in my opinion, and it means none of them really stand out. You've got the reporter, you've got the doctor, you've got the captain, and then everyone else kind of just blends in and doesn't really stand out to me, which means they kind of all get lost. I think those 3 give, good performances, and I think the monster who I'd count in there is fun, but no one really stands out and is that memorable, in my opinion. I love McCready, if it wasn't obvious. I love him so much. I think he's such a fun character for horror. I love our introduction to him, like meeting him in a way where he's playing chess against computer, is losing, so pours whiskey over it to break the machine. I think says everything we need to know about his character. I love how proactive he is, and that's the same with Charles. Like I think he's such a good character, such a good secondary protagonist, and I think just all of the interactions throughout everyone in this film is great. Everyone's dressed very uniquely, which makes it easy to tell who's who in a quick pinch. I think it's really well done, and I think that ending scene when they're sort of talking to each other is very harrowing, and it is something really cool that like those performances are so strong and also so subtle and reserved in other ways that decades later people still argue about the ending. Me and Emily disagree with who is infected at the end, which I think just says everything that could be said for the performances in this movie. So for Ensemble, I'm going to be giving the original a 2, just because I couldn't really keep track of who was who, and I don't really remember anyone's name from that film, but they did their job and they entertained me. And the remake's going to be getting a 5. It's so good. I love McCready. I love him so much.
Now for the original, I think the ensemble is really where it actually shines. I think there are some really interesting characters throughout this film. I think there could be an argument that some of the characters are very stereotypical, especially the reporter being really nosy and annoying. And the scientist has got that kind of typical evil genius vibe to him. But I think it does work well for this film. And I do think there has to be something said about that kind of transatlantic accent that they had in the 50s, and I just love that. I love watching film and hearing those accents. I think it's really fun. And one thing I have to give this film credit for is the portrayal of the women. And like, don't get me wrong, there's not millions of them. There's only 2 women really in this film, and one of them doesn't really do anything. But the other one, when we're introduced to her, she's, a younger woman, and she makes it clear that her and the captain have had a one-night stand, and she left him because she had better things to be doing. And for a film that's set in the 50s and that was filmed in the 50s, it's quite a progressive take to have a female character having one-night stands and not being demonized for it. I thought that was really refreshing to see. And I think her and the captain did have a little bit of chemistry that worked, but it wasn't overly kind of part of the plot, but it was just there in the background. But I think the whole kind of team worked together really well. Now for the remake, I think the cast is phenomenal. I mean, credit absolutely has to be given to Kurt Russell and Keith David, because they are both fantastic in this film. And I think the movie really lives or dies on their performances up until the very last second. And that's not to say that no one else gives any performances that are bad, because I think the whole ensemble works really well. I think no one phones a performance in. I think everyone is really convincing. And I think they work well as a team, and I think they're believable as a team that have been out there and working together for all that time. And I think the kind of seeds of distrust and manipulation are sown really well throughout all of the characters. And yes, our two main characters are the focal point, but we get little dives into other characters. Like there's the one guy that roller skates around the whole outpost, and it's just a fun little thing to have going on. But I think everyone is really realised, which was something I found really interesting, that when this film first came out, the characters were actually criticised because people felt they weren't realised. And I watch it and I think they're all phenomenal characters, and I think they're fully realised characters. So I don't know what people were on about back then. So I'm giving the original a 4. And I'm giving the remake the full 5 again.
For the original, I'm gonna have to be quite brief, considering there is pretty much no gore in this film whatsoever. Minus like a severed hand of the creature we see, which I'll give it something for that, because they could have just left it as severed hand, but they actually had someone under the table moving the fingers. So that did something, but I mean, other than that, there is virtually no gore in this film, other than a dead dog, and seeing dead animals doesn't really do anything for me, so that's not going to help with its ranking. Now this is sort of why you're here, isn't it? The gore in this film is amazing. It's probably up there with the best gore in any horror film of all time. Rob Bottin was one of the key special effects artists working on this film. He actually ended up in hospital due to pneumonia and exhaustion, due to working 7 days a week on this set for over a year. But I think the results speak for themselves, and especially if we compare it with its prequel sequel that came out years and years later, where they covered a lot of it up with CGI, it just doesn't hit the same. I mean, the stomach eating the guy's hands, the little spider head, the snake head of the same thing, the dog's mouth curling out. It's just some of the best gore I have ever seen, and this imagery sticks with me and inspires my own creative endeavors when it comes to gore in fiction. So for the rankings, for the original, it's probably going to be a 2. Probably would have been a 1, but I appreciate they went through the effort to get someone to sort of wriggle those fingers on the table, so that knocked it up a little bit. The remake, unsurprisingly, is going to be a 5. I mean, how could it not be a 5?
So for gore, there is really not a lot to say about the original. Just to be brutally honest, there is not a lot going on. Like I said, in horror, there wasn't really a lot going on in horror. I have to say the same here. There is really not much gore going on. There's not really a lot of vicious or violent moments in this film. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Whereas for the remake, I have a lot to say, because there are some disgusting practical effects going on in this film, and they look phenomenal. Again, this was received quite poorly at the time of its release, but it's become a cult classic and it's gained a really big following since. And I think that's a testament to the practical effects. They still look phenomenal now. It's been 40 years and they still look fantastic. I think it holds up better than a lot of modern practical effects do, and a lot of special effects. It's just disgusting, truly. And I love that this film was really praised at the time for its use of the special effects, while also being criticised for just how repulsive the effects actually looked. I can imagine that people going to see this in '82 were completely repulsed and horrified by what they saw, because I feel like that now. And we've got a big progression of special effects, but something like that just sticks in your mind because it's just truly disgusting. So for the original, I'm going to have to give it 1 for gore. And for the remake, it is getting the full 5. Absolutely no question.
Knowles, will you turn that crap down? I'm trying to get some sleep. I was shot today.
Now for the original, I really did like the music. I really like classic horror, and these like orchestral scores with like a lot of string instruments, I think just really makes the whole film feel a lot more epic. And I kind of wish we saw these in more modern films, to be honest. I think it's a kind of a lost art these days. Now the remake, on the other hand, has some of the most iconic music of all time. A lot of this I will just listen to in the background. I do just think the music has such a unique vibe that really adds to this film. It's sort of this electronic alien-esque score that I think just elevates the film as a whole and really just gives it that sauce that makes it its own. So for music, I'm going to be giving the original a 4, and the remake is, of course, getting another 5.
In terms of the original, I think it's got a really good opening track as the film opens on the credits and we kind of start to feel for the story. And I think the soundtrack ambles on the story pretty well. I think it builds really well at very dramatic moments. but I think it's a pretty under the radar soundtrack. There's not much to say, but it's not terrible. In terms of the remake, I think the soundtrack in and of itself is really simplistic, but it really adds to the vibe of the film. I think it just really works. I mean, it's Ennio Morricone who did The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and is just responsible for so many iconic themes for things. But this one is a really subtle soundtrack, but I think it really works, and it helps to build the tension and the kind of anxiety that this film just really lives or dies on. So I'm going to give the original a 3 and the remake a 4.
Your enemy, I'm a scientist. I'm a scientist who's trying.
Now, when it comes to vibes for the original, I think there's a lot to say. I mean, I love the opening title. I actually didn't realize the opening title, or like the logo design, actually came from the original film, not the remake. I already said it, but love how the snow looks in black and white. I love the UFO discovery, and that fire stunt is insane. But talking about the remake, this is a movie that was made for the vibes meter. It is just off the chart. I love how everyone is dressed. I love MacReady's dumb backwards cowboy hat. I love the paranoia, the blood testing scene when one of the aliens is tied up next to everyone else who's tied down with it and they're trying to get away. There's just so many things in this film that are great. And as a fucking flamethrower, man. Any film that has a flamethrower instantly is so good because of it. I just love the slow decay of trust that anyone has of each other, and the paranoia that just builds and builds throughout the film, even resulting in just a straight up murder where MacReady shoots a regular guy who comes at him, and he wasn't a monster. He was just a guy who was paranoid and a bit scared. It's amazing. So for the original, it's definitely going to be a 3. I enjoyed it, but there's definitely places it could have built itself up a bit more, whilst the remake is a 5. This is damn near a perfect movie for me personally.
For the original, I think the vibes are off the chart to start with. I just love kind of a 50s vibe. It's just really fun, it's different to see, and I do like a black and white film. I think it's really fun. But I think it just kind of loses its way along the middle. I feel like it's not a really fully realized film by the end of it, and I think just the monster not being very intimidating is a huge downfall for this film. But on the whole, I do really enjoy the vibes of this film altogether. It's not incredible, but it's not terrible either. It's very middle of the pack. And for the remake, I think I just have to talk about how bleak the film is. I think the vibe of the film is bleakness, and I think it really sells the story really well. And I really like how there's no happy ending, there's no winners in this film. The Thing is the winner, and we don't even know who the Thing is, and still at the very last seconds, it's been something of debate for 40 years. People still don't know definitively who is the Thing at the end. And I love that, and I love that people have their own interpretations of the film. I personally think it is MacReady because he offers the bottle over to Childs, and it's been, said in the film that it's passed on through DNA like saliva or blood, and by drinking from the bottle and offering it to Childs, to me feels like MacReady is the Thing and he's offering the DNA over so he can assimilate with Childs as well. But equally, I can see the argument that people make for Childs being the Thing. So I really like that there is this disparity and discrepancy, and I like that people take different things away from the film. It's also just a really well shot film. I think the film is just really beautiful. There's this quietness and bleakness to it that I really think helps sell the vibe of the film. I think it's just really well shot, and it hasn't really aged badly at all. It's been 40 years, but I think it holds up incredibly. And I do find it really interesting that it wasn't particularly received well at the time, but it has gained that cult following since, and I think it absolutely deserves it, because I think it's a phenomenal film. I think it's probably one of the greatest films of all time. So for the original, I'm giving it a 4, and the remake, I'm giving it the full 5 again.
So, we've gone through our opinions and scores for each category. Now it's time to add them all up and find out definitively, scientifically, which film is best. Let's go find out. Whoa, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. 69 to 36. Now that's a hell of a margin. Now, even though the original has lost by quite a bit, I still really recommend you check it out. It's still a really solid film, but yeah, there's a reason the remake is that good. Thank you so much for watching. We truthfully really do appreciate the time you spend watching these videos that we make. Now, if you want more videos like this, we recently did a video very similar to this on Night of the Living Dead. And if you want something a little bit different, Emily recently did a solo video where she compares the book for The Long Walk to the movie that came out recently. So check either one of those out right now, and if you like this content, why not subscribe? We'd love to have you here.